Hello, welcome back to Cambridge Autosound. This week we've got in this Rover Discovery Sport. It's had a system put in it previously, I think back in 2017 from when I was chatting to the customer and looking through the invoice at the equipment and what they've done to it. There's bits you'll see in the video that have previously been done well, and there's bits that can be improved upon. So I know who the company was. It doesn't matter who it was because I've seen work from them since, and it's been done to a better standard in terms of the wiring and the mounting of things. But yeah, things changed. Every company, if I look back at bits I did, not when I was a company so much, but when I was installing systems in my own car, probably 10 years ago, the wiring might have been fairly similar to this. So everything improves over time. So yeah, don't get hung up too much about the wiring in this car. But the main reason it's in is because it's got some very good speakers in it, Autosound Voces. It's got the 6.5 inch and the tweeters, but there's just not much vocal performance. There's a huge dip in the mid-range. And when the customer sat in my car and had a listen, it was like, wow, there's the sound. Let's see if we can do that in this car. So we're going to be taking out the amplifier that was in it, that's done an okay job over the time it's been in there, putting in a small Audio-Tech Fisher match amp, and you all know how much I like the software of those amps, so I'm much more familiar with being able to get that to sound exactly how I want it to sound, rather than the Autosound amp that was in it was one of the older generation of amplifiers where the DSP software was a bit more limited, let's say. And then we're just going to be seeing if that's enough or if we need to add a mid-range. It does have a mid-range location on the door. In fact, let me show you around the system now. Right, so let's start with the good. Doors, not bad. They're pretty well sound deadened. There's not much more you could do on those. The baffles, okay, they're MDF, but they've been in the car for several years and they haven't blown, so obviously installed well. Speakers, like I say, Autosound Voces, no problem at all with those. We're going to definitely keep those in the car. Haven't actually looked at how the tweeter's mounted yet, but the Autosound Voces tweeter is up behind the original panel. This is one thing I'm definitely going to be changing. It's running passive, so there's one signal coming into this side. It's split in this. This is what I mean by passive and active, if you've seen the videos before, or if you're still unsure. This is a passive crossover in the fact that I have no influence over the point that it crosses or the levels or anything like that. So that just splits the low frequency to the mid bass, which can obviously take it because it's a nice big chunky speaker, and then the high frequency to the tweeter. I'll have a look on the Autosound website and see if they actually state the point that this crosses. I think these are quite a low crossover for a passive crossover, actually, maybe 2.5K. So we'll probably cross at a similar point, but we'll muck around with the aggressiveness of the slopes just to try and get rid of the dip and see if it will work with a two-way active system. This is the door card, again, nicely sound deadened on the back, no problems there. It has actually got a factory mid-range speaker still here, so that's good. We'll see if I need to, if adding this in just to kind of fill in a bit of that mid-range will help. It's in quite a nice location. It's, well, it's not fantastic actually, but it's okay. It's, yeah, behind the handle, but facing towards the driver. One saving grace that might mean we can stick with a two-way system is the mid-bass is pretty high in the door actually, so there's not a huge amount of space between, or distance should I say, between the mid-range and the tweeter. So if we can get it working with a two-way and not have to spend any more money on the mid-range, then we will do. All about trying to be efficient with our money these days. This, obviously I've got it all stripped out. It was pretty filthy when it came in, so we gave it a vacuum and got it to the point where at least we can work on it. So this is underneath the passenger seat. That's the original amplifier, I presume. Don't quite know how it split all its signal yet because there's not enough wires coming out of it to run a three-way active. So obviously just forget that's there. The factory system would have still been a 6.5. It would have then had its little 3-inch mid and the tweeter. But on the 3-inch mid, there isn't a capacitor at all. So I can't believe that would have been run passively. That would have been run actively somehow. So the good thing is that hopefully there's enough wires coming in through the door conduit that we don't need to add our own ones. We can just find where the factory ones were. So what the previous install company had done was, for some reason, cut all of the wires going in and out of it, which has caused its own issues as well. But they'd cut all of the wires going in and out, then just reconnected I think these must be the signal wires coming from the head unit into the amplifier. These ones are then the amplified signal coming out of this amplifier that are then spliced going into the new Autosound amplifier that the previous company fitted. It's one way of doing it. I'm going to see what the actual level of the signal coming out of the head unit's like and put that straight into the new amplifier that I'm going to use. If that's not loud enough or powerful enough, we can look at using a preamp to boost that if that's still a nice flat clean signal on these wires. Otherwise, we'll have to integrate, like the previous company's done, the output from this amplifier. Not such a fan of the bullet connectors. Again, like I say, something I've used in the past back on previous installs and not how I'm going to do things now. And if I just splice in a bit of footage, when you move these, you get a bad interference through these speakers, and the back speaker cuts in and out, although I haven't got footage of that, but I've tested that as well. So listen to this. So hopefully that's just a poor kind of contact issue through one of these that's causing that door to kind of cut in and out a little bit. This is run, it's a 4-channel amp, but they're running this bridged, so it's sending plenty of power. I think 240 watts to these two speakers, or sending 240 watts to this that's then splitting it, obviously. The amp we're using isn't quite as powerful on paper. I don't think you're going to notice that. We're going to kind of tune it better and give it more headroom on the input side, hopefully. But we'll see about that. This is the amplifier that I'm going to use. You've all seen them before. It's an Audio-Tech Fisher product. It's a 6-channel amp as opposed to that's a 4-channel amp. It's got a much more advanced DSP in it, so I can flatten the inputs to get an input nice and flat, and then EQ the output as well. If we're only going to use the 2-way setup, then I'll use 2 channels for the front and then amplify the rear channels, timeline and EQ those as well, which currently isn't done. That's just doing the fronts, and then the rears are run directly from the head unit. So that's the amp that's going to go in, but we'll have to do a little bit of investigation on the wiring first. Gaffer tape that holds that down, not quite so tidy, so we'll have a little look at that, see if we can tidy it up a bit. This is a bit odd as well. There is another amplifier under the driver's seat that runs a subwoofer, which I guess this comes from this big wire that then goes into these tiny wires. So not too sure about that. We'll have a look at that. Day one, let's just I'll update you as I find bits, but hopefully we'll get this sounding a lot better. Oh, this is what I was going to show. So that's the microphone just sat roughly in the driver's position. That's not how I actually tune, but that's just to get a quick scan of the system. So with it running pink noise, there's quite a lot of mid-bass power, nasty dips, and then decent amount of high frequency power, but nothing really in this mid-range between kind of like 600, what's that, like 700 hertz to 2000 hertz. There's a massive dip, and that doesn't go away even if I hold the microphone close to either of the speakers. It's not that you're losing that frequency in the distance from the microphone to the door because it's kind of bouncing off bits in the car, or getting cancelled out by anything in the car, should I say. It's just not there on the speakers. So I suspect that's because the amplifier isn't actually getting a full range signal from the head unit, which will need to be tweaked with. Anyway, like I say, day one, just started this, so I'll update you as I find things. Hello, right, it's at the end of the job, almost. Just got to put all the carpet back in, but I thought I'd show you what we've done. Hopefully a bit tidier under here, as you can see. Loom taped everything up, fixed everything down. The power connector's now screwed down properly, and it's got ferrules on it. It's just a bit safer than just having the wire twisted and pushed in there, which is how it was. We've resoldered every single one of these connections. So these were all bullet connectors on the input and the output side of the amplifier. And it was causing some issues when we moved them around. There was interference and speakers cutting out. So these have all the pins have been taken out because they were so short that you couldn't really kind of strip the wire back with them in the plug. So we've taken all the pins out, resoldered everything on, put the pins all back in the correct order, checked all that, so that's much more stable. The door cards have been off, obviously you saw that before, and we've changed it from a passive setup to an active setup, so we've got rid of that Autosound passive crossover. And now we've got one speaker wire going to the mid bass and one speaker wire going to the tweeter, so we've got much more control over that, and that sounds a hell of a lot better just from getting rid of that passive crossover and sending the speakers the range of frequencies that I want them to play. Makes a huge difference. Let's just explain these amplifiers for anyone else that's watching this that might be wanting to fit a system. I know a lot of installers will kind of browse around YouTube when they're working on a car they're not too sure about. I know I have, so it's always interesting and useful to have this information out there. From what I can tell, there's 2 or 3 different systems in these Discoveries and probably most of the Land Rovers. This was the mid-level system, so premium audio they might have called it. The very lowest system would have been just running from the head unit straight to the 4 speakers. This being the mid-level or the upgraded system has got an amplifier, so you've got 4 channels coming from the head unit down to this factory amplifier, which are these wires on this plug. So you've got front left, front right, rear left, rear right. You've also then got CAN bus wires, because it seems to work that the amplifier actually introduces parking beeps. So that's one of the reasons why we've left this factory amplifier in place, because obviously we needed those. The other reason is they're very low level, so it probably would have needed a preamp anyway. And there wasn't much bass information on these inputs, so maybe the amp adds that. Either way, it wasn't the nicest signal to work with still. So overall, it was better to keep this amp in place and use the outputs from this amp into the Match-Up 6. So the outputs are then split into high level, low level, and sub for the front, and then rears. So overall, you've got 8 channels coming out of this. In this system, the tweeter and the factory mid, which is hiding under there, which isn't being used, and it wasn't being used, and it still isn't being used, but they would have been off one channel, so there must have been a passive crossover between those two somewhere. On the very highest system, from what I can see on the wiring diagram, they get a separate channel each, so it will have a different amplifier, 2 extra channels, so that it can run fully active at the front end, which is good. That's how we want to wire systems up as well. So yeah, we're still using the factory amp. That's got 8 channels of output. It's all now safely soldered up, so that one's done. On the new amplifier, so this is the Audio-Tech Fisher Match, which I've used before. It's a 6 channel. They do a 6, an 8, or a 10 channel in this kind of format. The 6 channel and the 8 channel, actually, strangely, have only got 6 input channels. So obviously we've got 6 output channels, but we need to put this feed into the amp. And like I've just said, there's 8 channels coming out of this. You can get a upgrade card for these. So you can get an upgrade card that does analog inputs. You can get one that does Bluetooth HD. We've used the analog input for this to give us 2 additional channels, so that we can run 8 channels into this, so that we can use the rears and then the 3 front channels per side. So that's a really handy thing to be able to upgrade these and personalize them as you need to. Once we've then got everything going into there, we can EQ it down. We can EQ the input and then EQ the output as well to get as flat a signal as possible. And I'll show you the graphs compared to what the original graph was like with that factory setup. Because that factory setup still isn't absolutely perfect, we've added down in this little cubby here this box, which is a Helix Bluetooth HD Streamer. So that's just stuck up underneath there because you need to get access to it to press the little pair button if you ever change your phone. That's where the old Autosound controller was, and for normal daily use, the cup holder just fits in there and you never normally see it. And obviously you've got your little cover across there. But if you ever change your phone or you need to reconnect your Bluetooth for whatever reason that it forgets it, you can just get access to it, press your little pair button, and then that's you all sorted for your new phone. So that HD Bluetooth card is then a nice, flat, clean, strong signal that from this box is an optical output that comes underneath the console, around this loom, into the back of the amplifier. So that digital input from the HD Bluetooth box straight from your phone is the cleanest input you're going to get. And it far surpasses the quality of the output from the head unit even after we've done our EQ. It's pretty good, most people will be happy with it, but this customer wanted to get it the best possible without kind of thinking that there was another level above that he could have done. So yeah, we put the Bluetooth card in. That means that when he's streaming directly to that box, it's not going through the head unit, it's not getting processed, we're not then having to reprocess it, it's just a nice pure clean signal. And it sounds, you can really hear the difference actually from that Bluetooth box. It's well worth having. So what's the downside, I hear you ask? Well, unfortunately, there is a downside. Nothing's ever perfect. When you're using the factory system, I'd start it, but every time you start it in this car, it lasts for about 20 seconds and then goes off again. The battery's been on charge the whole time. Don't know what it is. It only seems to work when the car's running, but it's been incredibly annoying when you're trying to tune the system. Anyway, with the factory system running, obviously you've got volume control from this dial. You've got volume control from the steering wheel here. A bit difficult to see it when you're looking through the actual phone screen. And you can skip track on here as well. That's all fine. When you Bluetooth directly to that box, you lose the ability to change the volume on here. You can change it directly on your phone, or we've fitted the Helix conductor. Now I appear to have had an equipment malfunction again. I think because the phone I'm recording this video on then connected to the CarPlay and it cancelled the microphone. Never mind, I'll do my best to voice over this section. So the Helix conductor is a clever little device, although it may take people a few minutes to get the hang of everything it can offer. Firstly, it's a main volume control with the LEDs showing you the current volume level. When you don't touch the controller for a few seconds, the LEDs dim down to 10% of their brightness. Its second function is as a subwoofer controller, and in this instance we've set the LEDs to red. Press it again and the third function is rear level control with the LEDs in yellow. The adjustment of the rear level is direct to the amplifier and not via the head unit. If you don't touch the controller for 10 seconds or so, it defaults back to the main volume control and you have to cycle through it again. I wish you could extend that time actually. Audio Tech Fisher, if you're listening to this, take note. So cycling back through the three functions, the fourth function we've got on this particular setup is where we can adjust the presets. At the moment we have just got one preset saved, which shows up as green. If there is a second preset, that will show up as yellow, and you press and hold to activate that preset. Once fully tuned, we'll be adding a second preset which will be more balanced for both front passengers. The preset 1 will be focused on the driver. Now I honestly can't remember what else I said after this point, so I'll just use this bit to explain that when the HD BT Streamer is in use, and then you receive, let's say, a phone call or you put the car into reverse, as soon as the amp senses a noise on the factory head unit, it cuts over to that source without you having to do anything. Once the call then ends or the parking beeps stop, the amp automatically switches back to the digital input, which the audio is coming from. So it's all very clever and super convenient.
Sister moon, will your tides rise up too soon? And I'm gonna move to the northland where stars are in view. Somewhere, baby, it's part of me, part of me. Someone said it struck the street. You're in the world, keep off your feet.
Ain't gotta be that difficult. I ain't never tried, no, not the typical. I won't kiss you, baby, more than physical. If I miss this moment, I'd be pissed off, yeah. Every time you need a friend, do you touch the note? Oh, yeah. Tell me the feeling, is it love or lust? Oh, yeah. Touching the dump, be in the rush for us. Oh, yeah. We getting closer, baby, don't give up. I take you to the top floor, baby. If you want it, don't let me go, hold on. Just ride. What you wanna do, I'll drive you through midnight. Let it rain, baby, rain. Till we slide into the air.
Right, almost home time. As you can see, it is 8:10 and I've sat for quite a while now inside this car tuning it, and it sounds pretty phenomenal. Night and day difference to how it sounded before. You just heard some songs of me in the driver's position. Put some headphones on, you should be able to hear the difference between the bass being wound down and back up again. Just through the laptop you can't really hear that, but with the headphones on you can. Yeah, can't wait for the owner to hear it. I think he's going to be very happy. Like I say, I've been actually quite enjoying listening to the music for the last few minutes in here because it sounds really good. Just going back to the graph that I showed you at the beginning, so that was the red trace this November 25th, and we had big dips around 4 to 5k, in fact all the way through the high range, and then the mid range was just nowhere. This big dip at 800. The blue line is where we are now, and again this is a static microphone in the headrest position, so it's a bit wavy all over the place. The actual measurements we do where we average it between left and right ear is a lot flatter than this, because at the end of the day you've got two ears, you haven't just got one in the middle of your face. But this just gives a good representation of what we've been able to reveal kind of with the changes we've made. So a lot more a lot flatter through here and a lot more kind of like volume in the high range, and then all the way through this mid range. Still funny peaks and dips, but that's a bit of kind of cabin gain and cancellation, but overall much more level through the whole system. And then this is with the sub playing as well, but with it switching between the Bluetooth and the CarPlay, you can hear that kind of additional mid-range up on the dash, just because, like I say, the Bluetooth source that we're using is completely flat, rather than the head unit output that we're having to kind of try and equalize and change and bring that mid-range up a bit to try and get it sounding okay. It's pretty good. In fact, I'll be interested to see if the customer can really hear the difference between the head unit output and the Bluetooth output. I can. I think he will be able to, but I'll kind of feed back on that once I've played it to him. But for now, that's a wrap on this one. Hope that's been interesting and of some use. CambridgeAutosound.com if you've got a car like this, or if you've had a system installed by someone and you're not quite as happy with it as you might be. But we'll see you on the next video. Thanks for watching.